This interview is brought to you by Access in partnership with Rocket Software. Good day, dear listeners. Welcome to a special episode of IT News Africa's Digital Innovation Podcast with Louis Monzon. Hyperautomation is gaining some serious traction across markets, with some of the largest corporations in the world investing time, money, and effort in the tech to increase efficiency and flexibility. Today, I'll be chatting with Jamie Devlin, Manager Sales Engineering at US-based Rocket Software, about the very exciting innovation of hyperautomation, as well as asking questions like, what is hyperautomation? What does it really mean for businesses? Will it cost jobs? And what does it mean for the African market? Now, join me and let's take a dip. It's a very interesting topic. I think over the last year or so, it's kind of become more to the forefront of what's happening. And for a lot of businesses, I think hyperautomation is something they really are focusing on. And if you could just be so kind to just explain in a broad sense what exactly is hyperautomation.
Yeah, perfect. So I think to really answer that question, you have to have a solid handle on what we currently categorize as automation, and more accurately, robotic process automation. RPA is the practice of identifying repeatable, discrete business processes from across the enterprise and automating them.
Okay.
Tasks that organizations are generally looking to automate, more often than not, they're pretty manual. They're very repetitive and pretty mundane in nature. This could be tasks such as updating customer address information in a call center, or picking up some sales data from a spreadsheet, loading into systems, or completing transactions across a number of disconnected systems. RPA is an amazing practice, and like we said, it's really exploded in recent years with major players and some of the smaller tech companies as well, really driving innovation and usability across their user base. However, RPA itself does have some limitations. More often than not, inputs and outputs have to be structured, and the process needs to be fairly rigid in general. Things have got to be rule-based. And really, this is where hyperautomation comes into play. So hyperautomation is the practice of combining multiple tools and technologies with RPA. So we're looking at concepts such as AI and machine learning and character recognition and process discovery, really to aid and accelerate the value that RPA brings.
Okay.
So to be a little bit more specific, when someone's planning an RPA initiative, they generally start by assessing what their strategical goals are within their company.
Right.
This might be increasing revenue or profitability, or maybe some kind of compliance regulation or a customer engagement target, and then from there, some kind of vision is established. Will we automate everything? Will we improve on what we have, or where do we actually start this process? What have we identified as the key milestones in the process?
Right.
And that's where the real effort comes into it, right? From customer feedback, this is where hyperautomation really comes into its own. Understanding what the process we will automate is and how, and really how do we deliver the greatest ROI. Mapping out business in that kind of fashion can really take a long time.
Right.
You need to tap into a series of business experts within your company across loads of different departments to really understand where the value is. That mapping process can be really late. And this kind of rigid process, it currently stands in the way between the value of RPA, and the people that understand the business. So what hyperautomation can allow you to do is to really break down that barrier, remove those obstacles, and I think the key point is allow you to remain really agile with whatever direction your business is looking to take.
It's a very interesting point you made, because I think for a lot of companies, it's these kind of things about planning what to automate, where to use the hyperautomation, or to use the RPA. I think those are things that aren't really thought about. When you think about a solution, usually it's all or nothing. So I think the flexibility is very interesting in that. Okay, so in terms of hyperautomation, what are like real benefits to businesses? What can it really help a business? For example, like if a company says, no, maybe like a call center, we want to start automating processes, or like a bank. Standard Bank has been actually doing a lot of hyperautomation initiatives recently. I'm wondering what actual benefits can they get from this?
Cool. Yeah, sure. So I think the operational advantages that come hand in hand with automation, repeatable process. There's the key time-saving things that you can expect from automating day-to-day operations. The kind of quick win that you would expect. You like we said, with hyper-automation, you're removing the reliance on subject matter experts, and you're empowering business users to accelerate through those where should we automate kind of questions. Again, there's the obvious thing that you get with a bot. They don't take sick days. They don't make mistakes. They don't need time off. But really, I think we have to look at this totally differently. I think hyper-automation, it's the key to helping your organization drive their strategical goals. So, for example, if you're in retail or you're in a call center, for example, you want to reduce the amount of time it takes to respond to a customer inquiry. If you're in manufacturing, you want to make sure that your items are on the production line within minutes, hours, but certainly not days due to delays.
Right.
I think organizations have to look at hyper-automation from the external customer's perspective and see how they view it through their eyes. I actually came across a nice use case that really works nicely in conjunction with AI and machine learning. I thought I'd share it in this conversation. Actually, it kind of orientates around the customer experience a car insurance company provides to their clients.
Yeah. Please do share. Yeah.
So a person, sure. So a person's they're driving to work. They have an incident in their vehicle. It's a minor incident, but the car has damage and needs to be repaired, and they can't get to work on time. So the person jumps out their car. They take a photo of the damage. They open an app on their phone, and they chat with a virtual bot to explain the incident and upload the photo of the damage. Due to the natural recognition of characters behind the scenes, the bot can understand who the person is. They can understand personal details. They can use AI to interrogate the picture of the car, and it can understand the damage that's occurred in the vehicle and provide a real-time estimate. And then the beauty of hyper-automation is behind the scenes, right? So the RPA process then takes all that input, processes customer data, contacts all the local garages, requests quotes. In the meantime, puts a call in the call center queue to make contact with the person that's been in the incident. And then all of this, which is then the key for me, is then it sends directions to the person in the incident, to the nearest coffee shop or the nearest hospital or the nearest doctor, so they can go and seek the care that they need before their car is then towed. And that's the concept for me. Hyper-automation it's more than just, we can save some hours per day or per week. We can actually do more with what we've got to deliver a better service to the customer.
Right. So it's more about the convenience, right? It all happens in the background. The customer just has to put one quick thing in, and everything gets sorted out in the background, right?
Yeah, I think it is. Yes, most vanilla form, absolutely. And there's much more straightforward and simplistic use cases. This is kind of a absolute icing on the cake example.
Okay.
But
I get you.
Kind of paints a nice picture of it.
Okay, cool. So we mentioned the fact that robots or like AI will be doing the tasks, these simple tasks, these repeatable tasks. But when that happens, there will be certain jobs that won't be existing anymore because they'll be replaced by these automated processes. So this has been, for hyperautomation, I think this has been one of the main drawbacks. Or like when you get arguments against hyperautomation, this is the thing that people will point to, like, no, we will lose jobs. Can you point to any other negatives to hyperautomation, and then how can we sort of overcome these negatives? How can we turn these negatives into positives?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, there's an element of automation that will replace, a manual task that's traditionally done by a person. But this is this is across a number of industries. I think to assume hyper automation completely replaces the workforce is not the right way to look at it. I think the IT industry, it constantly evolves and adapts with new practices.
Okay.
As practices emerge and are adopted, companies they ultimately see the increase in business as a result of that tool, and it gives them the market advantage they're looking for. And then, as a subsequent of that, new roles and gaps will appear in the workforce that need to be plugged with people, not bots, right?
Yeah.
And the workforce will naturally evolve in that way and find ways to kind of redeploy their skills to other more human, like value-driven efforts within an organization. Bots can't be left running unattended. They need people to govern them and scale them, administer, and to evaluate and analyze the data they come back with. So yes, there is the obvious sort of instant thought that it replaces what a human is capable of doing.
Yeah.
But I think you have to look at it as actually we create more opportunity and free up people to do some kind of more value-added exercises. Yeah,
you can even see this in larger scale with like automation in factories and stuff. Like it's the those simple tasks that are usually like soul crushing. They're the ones that get automated, which frees up time for people to do something else, something more valuable with the time. I think that's actually a very good advantage to automation. So in terms of in Africa, we're looking at South Africa and Africa in general. And I know your channel is Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So can you tell us more about what the landscape of automation looks like in Africa? Where do you see it going in the next few years or in the next 10 years or so? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. From my experience, working predominantly in the banking sectors in South Africa, this is definitely a growth market. So hyper-automation is not something that all geographies and all verticals are able to adopt right now, but certainly is on the radar for the near future. RPA has just made real headways in the last 12 to 24 months in this region. But obviously with labor costs being the main factor in adoption for any form of automation outside of IT as well, other global regions might be further ahead. One of the biggest challenges is always going to be cultural. Like you said, tackling the question of, is my job at risk? If you need company-wide buy-in, then if there's friction or resistance, then making it a success is always going to be tough. But like I say, there are a number of studies that indicate, automation can be good for employment. Increased productivity, increased company profits, output, employment, wages, culture can kind of all be affected by this, and not always negatively. I think in South Africa specifically, hyper-automation is there to augment and complement, and it's really only a matter of time before this really does become common practice.
So do you foresee across the market there'll be lots of companies using automation and RPA?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then it goes to the obvious next point, which is for a continent like Africa, where Africa is a special case because of its political and social issues and its history and stuff. What happens is that a lot of African countries will leapfrog technologies. They'll miss the middling technologies and they'll go towards what's coming out now. They'll focus on the future, right? Why can hyper-automation be important for Africa? What can it benefit Africa as a whole and the countries they're in?
Sure. Yeah. So I think it's different to say when cloud technology became the big thing, right? And we were all heading in that same direction in terms of scalability and flexibility and ROI. I suppose when we look at hyper-automation, we need to be looking at the problem we solve from a more creative perspective. So, the origins of RPA date back a few decades now, with the early foundations being kind of screen scraping technologies in the early 2000s-ish. And, the RPA element to hyper-automation is not what I would class as new technology. And when we start to shift towards hyper-automation, now you have the freedom to bring in the value-add technology that suits your business. So we're not leapfrogging in that kind of sense.
Okay.
We're taking a more bespoke, methodical approach, and certainly not rushing into the first technology that's out there. You've got to be a little bit more pragmatic to the problem that you're solving. So in the example that I stated before with the car insurance company and using the latest AI and text recognition and machine learning to improve customer service, we're not all doing something quite as radical as that.
Right.
We're not quite there yet across the globe.
Like you said, it was a cream of the crop.
Yeah, exactly. A prominent issue that hyper-automation can solve is a lot more straightforward than this. It's, we don't understand the underlying processes in our applications. We need to find out where to start automation and how we deliver the most value, and can we automate everything? And this might be because of missing technical skills or missing coding skills or lack of platform experience, or we just want to find an alternative route to a traditional RPA process. You're just trying to unlock value in some way that's different to your competitor. And coming back to the sort of African market in general, competitive is like a top subject. So, we used to talk a lot about the Amazon effect. If Amazon were to start operating in your region and able to ship the products that competed directly in your line of business, then you were kind of in trouble if you didn't adapt to that and didn't change the way you adapted to your customer needs.
Right.
The adoption of automation is really in line with that way of thinking. It boils down to a competitive advantage that you can leverage. As I mentioned, my car repair vehicle incident earlier, it's about aligning with strategical goals. In that case, they wanted to do everything you expected, but they wanted to improve their customer engagement rather than just thinking, I can save X amount of hours this week by working alongside a bot.
All right. Okay. Well, I think that covers most of it. Jamie, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, sure. Just to kind of finish up, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise.
I wanted to thank Access Work Group as well for facilitating this with us. I hope you enjoyed the hyper process automation discussion.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Jamie.